Hi, Bob here. So this is a quick introduction to the videos that I've been asked to make. So originally I was going to be doing one video about constructing a shield for LARP. It's actually got a little bit longer than I thought, so I'm going to be splitting it into two halves. So the first half is actually me just talking about general construction ideas, and all the things that you need to get started, and a little cost guide of how much they're going to cost you here in the UK. Then the second video is going to be the actual construction of the shield. So you'll see me mainly in my shed cutting out, gluing together, and there'll be a full instructional video on how to do that. And with the two together, hopefully you'll be able to get some insight. So I also want to say one last thing, which is that this is my very first video ever, so I apologise for the poor editing quality of this. I hope that you just get the gist of what I'm trying to do, so apologies for that, and yeah, hope you enjoy it. Thank you. Hi, Bob here. So I attend a LARP called Empire. Some of you may have heard of it before. If not, I'll put a description, but I'll put a link in the bottom to some other videos that will actually explain about Empire and LARPing in general. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about how I make LARP weapons and shields. So this video in particular is going to be about making a LARP safe shield that is acceptable for the LARP that I attend, which is Empire. So the techniques that I'll be using in this video are specific to essentially getting that shield passed by the weapons checkers at Empire. If you attend other LARPs, check with the rules and the weapons checkers for your own particular LARP. Please make sure that you do that. The last thing that you want to do is turn up at your LARP and get your weapon or shield failed because you've not followed the LARP that you're attending's rules. So like I said, this video will be about the shield that I'm about to make, and it's specifically designed for Empire. So the design of the shield is specifically designed for the nation that I play, which is Navarre. So if you're looking to make a sort of more generic shield or something for yourself, you can take these techniques, apply them to your own design, and you should be good to go. So saying that, so this video is just about how I make it. There are other ways of doing weapons, shields, so this is by no means the only way of doing it. So this shield's going to be constructed fully foam, which is basically what Empire would like. There are other ways of creating shields. You can use formers of various different types, and again that would be depending on the rules of your particular LARP. But like I said, this one will be 100% foam, apart from the actual handle that you need to hold on to. So this video is for pretty much like myself. I'm a complete amateur. I don't do this for profit, I don't do this for money. This is purely for my own enjoyment and that of my friends. I have sold a few bits and bobs at Empire, but that's always been for in-character money. Just to get myself into the game more. I don't sell, generally I don't sell for real world money, because that's just what I like to do. So saying that, making weapons and particularly shields is not cheap. If you just want to get yourself a sword or a shield just for your personal use, and you're not bothered if it's a bit generic, then I really recommend that you go to one of the traders that are out there, or turn up at your event and buy one from them. The simple reasons are one, you're pretty much guaranteed that it's going to pass the weapons check for your LARP, and two, it's just going to be cheaper. People think that constructing your own weapons and swords and shields is going to be cheaper. Well, it can be, but generally you have to make a lot. So if you want to make one sword, it's not going to be cheaper. If you want to make 10 swords for your entire group, well then yes, it is probably going to be cheaper for you to do that. Because some of the things that you're going to need are quite expensive. They don't last forever, and they are the actual construction of the LARP safe weapons is quite tricky. So I'm completely self-taught. I've started off by checking some videos on YouTube, which I'll talk about in a second, and then I took some advice from experienced weapon makers from the LARP that I attend, which I've said before is Empire. So the first thing I actually did when starting making my own weapons was, like most people would do, I started looking at YouTube. So there's a lot of tutorials out there, but I actually found that the vast majority were pretty much useless, because most of them are American, and the weapons and the systems that we use here in Great Britain and pretty much Europe really are completely different. The Americans tend to use boffer style LARPs, so that the construction methods of boffer weapons, which are basically sort of great big sort of pool noodles around a core with lots of gaffer tape on it. They don't look great, but they're incredibly safe, and you can really whack someone with one of those things and you're not going to feel a thing. But the techniques for doing that are completely different to what we want to achieve here, and the standard of the weapon that we basically wanted to look like a sword or look like a shield. It just helps with our immersion. So I looked at some of the European guys who were putting videos up, and those ones that were in English. And again, some of them were very good. Particularly one I found was a guy, I think he's German, apologies if you're not, called LARP Right, and I'll try and put a link in the description to his videos, which basically set me off going. His descriptions are really good. You get a really good understanding of how to make some basic stuff like swords and axes, and I really would recommend you have a look at those. However, the problem with it was, of course, because it was German, the stuff that he used wasn't necessarily available over here. So basically, through trial and error, I had to get together the bits and pieces that I could see that he was using, figure out what they were, and then get a UK equivalent. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to run through the very basic things that you're going to need to start making weapons, and a rough, very rough sort of price guide in UK pound sterling for purchasing these things. This is by no means a full list, alright. Obviously I've not included any major power tools here, which I have in my shed, which are very, very useful, believe me. But, you know, you could probably, with pretty much what's on the table in front of me, you could pretty much make a sword or a dagger or an axe or something like that, you know, to a reasonable standard with what's in front of me. So, okay, so on to the essential components for making weapons and shields. One of the first things you're going to need is some glue. So this is Wix high strength contact adhesive. I get it from Wix just because it's local to me. I'm sure you could get something similar from other DIY centres across the UK. I find this really good. It does the job. There's not a lot more you need to say about it. Costs around about £10 for a tin this size, which is the 1 litre. You can get one, I think, in 500ml, which is obviously cheaper than So if you're doing a small project, a small one would be fine. When you're making a shield, you're probably going to go through a good proportion of a full tin of that. Okay, so onto this stuff. This is called Isoflex. It is a special primer that is used for repairing flat roofs. It also protects your LARP weapons from wear and tear. It's horrible stuff. It stinks. It's toxic. It's pretty much all the bad that you can possibly get in a tin is this stuff. But it's really the only thing that you can use to protect your weapons once you've completed them. You will need to apply that. You will need gloves, absolutely. You will need a mask. I've got a cheap one because I'm a skinflint. Ideally, you want to breathe a proper full face breather mask. That stuff is really, really bad. But as a minimum, you need to get yourself a mask when using it. Well ventilated area. I construct everything in my shed, so when I'm using that, the doors are open, the windows are open, yeah, it is not nice. It's also expensive, so a tin of that is going to cost you between £25 and £30, and like I said before, with they've got a shelf life, so once you've opened this up, it's only going to last you so long. I had one in the shed where I didn't quite put the lid back on properly, and I lost about a third of a can. It just turned solid into a solid gel. So you live and learn. If you're like me and you're a little bit messy, you're probably going to want to get yourself some Isoflex cleanup fluid. It's pretty much the only thing that is going to get that off anything. Once it's dry, forget it. You've got no hope. This will only clean up wet Isoflex. So if you get any on your hands, which you shouldn't because you're wearing gloves, mainly like with me on my worktop, on the floor, you know, and of course on your brushes, that's the only stuff that's going to clean it up. I have to admit, I didn't buy this when I first started. I actually just bought really cheap brushes and threw them away, because once you've got that stuff on your brush, you're never getting it off again. So if you're not going to go to the expense of buying one of these, and these are about, God, £8–9 for a bottle of that, then buy really, really cheap brushes and just literally bin them after you've used them. So yeah, so there's that. Then you're going to now on to latex. Okay, so this one I bought from a supplier that I'll try and put in a link in the description. Essentially, this is very easy to get hold of. You can get this off Amazon. I found though that if you wanted the big 5 litre cartons like this one, it is cheaper to go directly to a supplier rather than Amazon. The stuff that's on Amazon tends to be in smaller 1 litre or 500ml bottles, and it's okay if you're going to just do 1 or 2 things, but again, it does tend to run out quite quickly. You do use a lot of this, so if you're going to be making quite a few weapons, I go for the 5 litre. Not that expensive for its size, so that was about £25-ish, something like that. Obviously a smaller one is again much cheaper, but it does last quite a while, to be quite honest. You can get a lot of weapons out of this. I've done about, I don't know, 10 weapons or so with this bottle, and I've got about 2/3 of the way through it, so you can get a lot done with that. And so foam, obviously you're using foam to make your weapon, your shield, whatever it is that you're going to be doing. So I've got a few offcuts here just to show you a few different thicknesses. So this is called LD45, low density, and 45 is to do with the grams per square metre, I believe. And this is essentially what I use for pretty much everything that I make. There are other foams out there, there are different densities you can use, but to be quite honest with you, this does pretty well for everything. So I've made shields out of this, made axes, made hammers, made swords, and they've all been absolutely fine. I've never had a problem with any of them passing weapons check, so this is pretty good stuff. Again, I'll try and put a link in the description to the supply that I use. These guys who supply me with my foam are really good, very quick with postage, and a little tip with them, check out their slightly soiled section. So the foam will come to you not quite pristine. It's a bit like that one actually. It's just got a few marks on the surface, but as we're going to be painting over them, it doesn't matter, and you get it a little bit cheaper. So that's a little tip. Yeah, so there's different thicknesses here. There's a bit there that's 10mm, I think. I've got some 8mm there. That's 5mm, and that's a little bit of 3mm. Yeah, with constructing weapons such as swords, particularly, and daggers, you're going to need to match the thickness of your foam to the thickness of your core. So for instance, this one's a 5mm, that's a 5mm core, so you'll hopefully can see that they're the same thickness. And the reason that you want to do that is because when you sort of sandwich the whole thing together when you're making a sword, I intend to make another video showing how that's done, although there are a few out there already. It means that your core will lie flat inside your blank, as we call it, which it just means that it's just going to fit better, and you're able to sand it and cut it and shape it more easily without having a sort of bump in the middle. It also means that there's more surface area for the glue to stick to on the core. So yeah, so just make sure that depending on the size of your core, you get the right size foam to go with it. Okay, so a few words about cores. This video is actually going to be about shields, so I'm not really going to go into any great detail about cores. I'll probably do a separate video about making swords, axes, that sort of thing, where I'll go into detail about cores. So for now, it suffices to say that there's basically two types. You've got fiberglass and you've got carbon fibre. This is a fiberglass one. It's basically all I've got left at the minute. It's fiberglass, it's a 5mm core, so it's probably the smallest core that you're going to use. And this would be used for sort of daggers or short swords. I mean, actually this length is probably about as long as you might want to go with a 5mm. You could probably get another 2 or 3 inches out of it. As your weapons get longer, the cores need to be thicker, and the reason for that is most LARP systems have, in their weapons check, have a criteria of the flexibility of the sword. If it's too flexible or too whippy, it can be rejected, and so your sword won't pass weapons check. So there is actually some size guides out there, but again, I'm not going to go into all that at the moment. That's for another video, and where we can discuss cores at a great length, pun intended. Okay, so one last little bit before we crack on with some actual construction of the shield we're going to be making, and that is about tipping weapons. Again, as I'm making a shield mainly in this particular video, I'm not going to go into the full detail of how to tip a sword or any other weapon for that matter. suffice it to say that you need to do it, and there's a few different components that you can get to do that with. The reason I'm mentioning in here is actually because it's a sort of ingredients, as it were, or equipment sort of list. So there's a couple of ways you can tip a sword. First one is by using some leather, and that's a pretty old method. Works okay, but leather's quite thick, and it does make it, you know, quite difficult to do. And the other way is to use Kevlar or Kevlar tape, which sounds a little bit, you know, excessive, but actually it's not that expensive. And the people who do the foam, I believe it is, also sell Kevlar tape, which you can get in, I think, various different widths. The one I use is about 5mm, sorry, not 5mm, 50mm wide strip. They sell it in metre lengths, and it's literally a couple of £1. So honestly, why would you not use that? It makes them far safer, far stronger, and again, like I said, that's really for another video. I'll do a video on making swords, etc. At another time. Okay, so the next section will be in my shed. So we'll start with marking out, go through some of the cutting process, the different components to make up the shield, and then on to gluing it all together, latexing it all, painting it, and then of course at the end isoflexing it, and I'll do that as we go.